right, well, let's check on our social media board to see if we've got any other questions going on.
We got another math question, this one down here. If my mom drops my front door key from our apartment window several stories above the ground, and the function is defined by height is equal to negative 16t squared
Okay.
plus 24, and where h is the height and t is seconds, how long does it take the key to reach the ground, and how would I find that out?
All right. That's a really good question.
Very good question.
That's a very good question. Well, I will happily answer that question. Go ahead and cut to my computer screen, and I will give you my best. All right. So the equation that was given was h equals negative 16 times t squared plus 24. The question was, I think they threw a key. They threw a key. Yeah, they threw a key. And it was defined by this equation, the position of it. The h represented the height of that key, and then the t is the time in seconds. And what we were trying to find out was how long did it take for that key to hit the ground. So an important piece of information here is where that key hits the ground, that height is going to be 0. And that's something that you need to understand in order to be able to answer this question. So what we can do is set this equation, change my h into 0, because when it hits the ground, the height is 0. And then what I need to do from there is solve for t squared. Now, or sorry, just solve for t. Now, from here, what we can do is factor. Or if factoring is not an option, you can solve using the quadratic equation. One thing, when you look at equations at first, sometimes it's hard to tell if you can factor it or not. So I'm going to attempt it. The first thing you would do when you factor is you check to see if there's a greatest common factor in both of your terms. So I'm looking at negative 16t squared and 24, and I want to see if there's a greatest common factor between those two. I can factor out a negative 8. Seems like the largest number I can factor out. And then I'm left with 2t squared plus negative, or it would be minus 3 would be what I was left with. And then from there, to solve is you want to set each piece or each factor of that equation equal to 0. So I'm going to take this 2t squared minus 3 and set it equal to 0. I could also set that the other factor, which was negative 8, equal to 0, but that doesn't give us any answers for our x's, or for our t's, for our time. So then I'm going to isolate t by adding 3 to both sides, and then I will divide by 2. So again, I'm isolating t. So then I have t squared is 3 divided by 2. And then to find out what t is we're going to square root both sides. And what would end up happening is you're going to have the positive or negative square root of 3 over 2. Now, when you think about the situation, you can't have negative time. So we're not going to use that negative answer. We're going to say that the only possible answer is the positive answer, because time can't be negative. So we'll just say our time is going to be the square root of 3 over 2. Now you, of course, since they asked in seconds, and we don't talk about seconds in square root, you of course would want to actually calculate this and find out exactly what it equals. But this is how you solve it, is you set that height equal to 0 and then solve for t, and then use answers that are reasonable answers. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully I answered your question, Lorenzo. Thank you again for sending these questions in.